अजय बताना।
We are live.
Hello and welcome to a new season of the JGU Knowledge Series on film and new media, theatre and the performing arts, a dialogue between artists, practitioners and our students. I am Kishalai Bhattacharjee from Jindal School of Journalism and Communication. We shall talk about challenges, history and perspectives by engaging a one-on-one conversation with noted experts from the world of performing arts and moving images. Joining me today is Firoz Abbas Khan, an award-winning theatre and film director and screenwriter who has had a long tryst with the stage and cinema. I love calling it celluloid still. Mughal-e-Azam, the musical play directed by him, is hailed as a historic moment in Indian theatre, and his most recent reimagined version, and within quotes, of Romeo and Juliet, titled Ronak and Jassi, is an uncompromising advocate of life, of love in times of hatred. Gandhi, my father, Tumhari Amrita, my favorite, Kuch Bhi Ho Sakta Hai, Dinner with Friends, are some of his landmark productions. Welcome to the show, Firoz.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks. But today is a special day. There are very few people in the history of a nation who can shake our collective conscience. Lata Mangeshkar is surely amongst them. While the nation is mourning her loss, we are also, in a sense, celebrating a life fully lived, a life that has moved millions of people across generations, a voice that is inimitable, a melody that shall never die. I would like to request Reeth to play an audio clip in memory of Lata, where she actually introduces Firoz's play Mughal-e-Azam.
मैं फिरोज खान और शाहपुर जी पालन जी को बहुत बहुत मुबारकबाद देती हूँ कि उन्होंने एक बड़ी फिल्म को स्टेज पे लाया है। वो है मुगल-ए-आज़म, जिसमें मेरे गाने थे, और ये फिल्म कुछ 7 साल बन रही थी, और उस वक्त सब लोग कहते थे कि इतना लंबा टाइम और ये पिक्चर अब बन रही है, क्या होगा क्या नहीं होगा। पर जिस दिन पिक्चर रिलीज हुई उसी दिन लोगों को अच्छी लगी। नौशाद साहब का वो एक बेहतरीन काम था जो उन्होंने इतने सुंदर गाने दिए थे। अभी तक मुझे एक बात याद है कि उन्होंने कहा था कि लता तो हिंदू है, लेकिन उसने बेकस पे करम कीजिए कितनी खूबसूरत नात गाई है मेरी। ये बड़ी खुशी से कहते थे वो। मैं हमेशा उनके पाँव को हाथ लगाती थी और मैं उनको बिल्कुल अपने पिता जैसे मानती थी। आज इस फिल्म को आप लोग सब स्टेज पे देखेंगे। मैं इस ड्रामा को और फिरोज को और बाकी सब काम करने वालों को बहुत बहुत शुभकामनाएं देती हूँ, और जो छोटे हैं उनको आशीर्वाद देती हूँ, और उन्होंने मुझे यहाँ बोलने का अवसर दिया, इसके लिए मैं उनकी आभारी हूँ। नमस्कार।
What a moment, Firoz. Must have been a wonderful privilege for you to have her on stage introducing the play. So, Firoz,
no, this wasn't actually. She wasn't on stage.
Okay.
I had gone to her home to ask for to take her blessings, because it was only appropriate that something like Mughal-e-Azam is done, where she has given some of the most memorable rendition, and because I had a relationship with her, for we knew each other and very fond of each other in many ways. We used to spend some time whenever we met, and so I thought that if I was doing this, I'd go to her home to take her blessings and a message from her. So she just immediately said, "Yes, please take this," and she recorded this spontaneously for the show. And that was the last time that I met her, and that's it. So this is a very, very, yeah, you were right that not only there's a personal loss, but there is a collective celebration of what she was and what she did, and there'll never ever be anybody like Lata Mangeshkar.
So, Firoz, is this also an end of an era in Indian cinema and music?
Yeah.
I mean,
It is. Yeah. I mean, look, she was a colossus. She, for decades, she was the only voice that we heard. But there's some interesting anecdote that I would like to share with you. When I was talking to her, there was a time she wanted me to document her life, and so we spent a lot of hours she talking about her various experiences in life. I have those tapes with me, which are now great treasures for me. And she said one very interesting incident was that she and Noor Jahan were very good friends, and that friendship continued even after partition, because Noor Jahan went to Pakistan, and they used to be in touch with each other on, I think, their birthdays. They would share gifts and so on and so forth. So in 1965, when the war happened with Pakistan, one day she got I think a call from the police department saying that you're making many calls to Pakistan, because that was a wartime, and says, what's going on, we are monitoring. She says, I'm speaking to Noor Jahan. So he says, but this is, he says, well, it doesn't matter. We could be at war as nations, but as relationships go, I can't cut that off. That's my relationship for all times to come. And that I thought was very poignant, because that in many ways encapsulated what she was, and one of the things that she said was that while she was, it's very, if you look at her songs, she has worked very hard to get her diction right, because in those days the lyricists and the composers, they were highly literate people. Particularly even the composers, they were very literate, and so were the poets, and they were very particular about the nuances of the language, and not like now we can use the whichever way you can speak, it's fine. But in those days they were very. She made the special effort. She got a teacher. And if you look at and hear her song, she's never wrong in her diction and pronunciation, particularly pronunciation of, in those days, they were all mostly Hindustani Urdu words. And she worked very hard for that. She was very, very, and right till the end, whenever she sang a song, she said she worked as hard as she did when she was recording her first song. That was what, symbolized her excellence. Also behind that was a lot of hard work.
and I'm sure she was loved as much in Pakistan as much she is loved in India.
Yes. But that's a great thing about art, that it's a healer, and many a times it's art that manages to get people together. And it's basically, you look at the artist to heal and not to wound. That's what I suppose is a job of an artist, and she was that. And even now, our continuous culture continues, to be there with Pakistan, that nobody can deny the continuity of a civilization and a culture, and it is through our music and through our stories and through our other artistic endeavor. If they are singing classical song, if they are staying home, then that we are still part of the same continuous civilization. And that's what art does. And she, oh yes, she was loved in Pakistan. That's what I've always seen. I've seen that the moment you're in the presence of real artists, everything is transcendental. You transcend everything. You transcend all barriers, and you are all together in a collective humanity, and you're sensitized towards the most beautiful things in our life. And that's what she did. Yeah.
And Indian cinema too. I mean, as it's as much loved in Pakistan, even in Myanmar. Actually, I was surprised when I went out there and how many Indian movies they watch, even though the language is different. Or in Turkey, I mean, India is like the hero worship Indians. But staying with Mughal-e-Azam, it won. I think it won 7 of 14 Broadway World India Awards. It's like India's big Broadway entry, let's say, Mughal-e-Azam. I have not had the privilege to watch it really, but it was the first scale of a Broadway scale that you had directed. Now, how difficult as a director it is to adapt a classic from screen to stage, and a classic of this, grandeur, of this level, magnitude?
Yeah, this is a question that I am always asked, and it should be asked because that's a concern. The concern begins with that you do not tamper with classics. And I think in recent times, there were some attempts being done, like Sholay was made into something very, very, it was pathetic what was done with Sholay. And Sholay is, of course, a recent classic. And you thought that, you shouldn't be. Because with classic, there are also lots of memories that are attached to it. The whole generation found its vocabulary of love through Mughal-e-Azam. They were even a lot of people who were naive enough to understand that this is history, what was being done. They had Prithviraj Kapoor as Akbar, Salim as Dilip Kumar, and Madhubala as Anarkali. I mean, they had been etched in our memories, and we wanted to, and memories are very precious, so you need to keep it very safe. And if somebody turns around and says, I'm going to make Mughal-e-Azam, the first reaction would be of being very audacious. And it's also a very huge risk career-wise, because if it doesn't work, then of course, you are rejected very badly, because it's a huge fall, because you are aspiring very high. So the fall will be very steep if it doesn't work out. So those were, of course, the huge challenges. And there were people who were saying, look, fine, you've done some decent work in the past, but why are you touching Mughal-e-Azam? And it's very interesting that there's a whole documentary on Mughal-e-Azam. If you hear the people's reaction before they entered the theater, and then after they watched the show, it's quite extraordinary. Yes, I was hugely burdened by the responsibility of not what is called harming the memories of the people. And so I went around with the production with the greatest respect for the original. I didn't do the play to tell you that, look, I'm going to do better than Mughal-e-Azam, the movie, not at all. And look at me, how I can distort it and put my own stamp on it. That was not the point. The point was that, look, I respect the original, but I need to do it in a different medium. So the first thing was, that it was done as a musical, live musical. So there's a whole transition from what is called a cinema into a real live musical, which we haven't done in a very, very long time. The scale was there. And we also made the play more accessible in acting wise, because those, if you look at Mughal-e-Azam, a lot of acting is rather very, what is called traditional style of Parsi theater kind of acting, rather bombastic, except for Dilip Kumar. And so we were also making the performance more intimate. So they were playing the characters of the original and not imitating the characters from the film. So I had a workshop for 15 days. So you would call it, the whole process was to de-Mughal-e-Azamize, in the sense that to take away all because the moment you speak Akbar, immediately you get the voice of Prithviraj Kapoor. It just keeps coming out, you can't help it. So the 2 weeks was just doing workshops to remove all that out. And then after having taken that out, to find a voice of the character within the physical reality of the actors and how they would do it. And then it became more real and intimate to them. So all those things were done, great respect to the original, giving a new rhythm, giving the new sort of a power to the whole show. And interestingly, also, you have to understand the genesis of Mughal-e-Azam. The roots of Mughal-e-Azam lies in theater, because it was originally a play which K. Asif Saab had seen and wanted to do. And you have to also understand that before Mughal-e-Azam, the same story is called Anarkali. Actually, it's the story of Anarkali rather than Akbar. But he changed a lot of those things. So Anarkali, the film, was already made in 1956. Another version was made long time ago. So this has been going on for a long time. So it wasn't a new story that was told. It's the way the story was told. And I think that once the play people experienced it, they realized that this is more like a homage to the original, rather than trying to say that I want to do something so different to stand out like a sore thumb. That's not what I wanted to do.
Feroz, just like adapting a classic is like taking a risk. It's a gamble. I mean, people may love it, people may completely reject it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And playing with legendary figures, someone like Gandhi is also as risky. I mean, you.
Oh no, that is more risky. That's much more risky.
Much more.
Yeah,
You directed Gandhi, My Father, which was a path-breaking, and it made a public figure very personal because Gandhi is on our currency notes. He's the father of the nation, but there is a personal, there is a human Gandhi. I mean, and you moved between the stage and cinema, so as to, I mean, a lot of actors in Hindi film industry do that with Elan. Not many directors do that. If you can tell us these two things. One is that how difficult or how much at ease you are to move from the stage, because even the lighting is different between the two, you see. So I mean, it's the almost two different genres. And my second question would be that, just like Mughal-e-Azam, how did you think of touching Gandhi? Or is it your fetish to pick up subjects and pick up things which are risky, which is going to challenge you?
I think let me answer your second question first, because the thing is that I don't go out looking out that I would like to do something. There has to be something that should affect me. There's one thing. It should affect me deeply. It must stay with me for a long time. Because if it stays with me for a short time, which means that it wasn't that important and it would go away, okay? But something that stays with you for a long time, you would understand that that really means a lot to you. And I think this subject of Gandhi, which originally was a play in Marathi, okay? But interestingly, I knew about this story and character from, again, it's linked with Lataji. I was in London to do my play Tumhari Amrita. And that's a time Lataji had actually traveled from London to Leicester, where I was in a performance, to watch the play. That was the first time actually I met her. And then I was doing Tumhari Amrita at the India Nehru Center in London. And Sri Gopal Gandhi ji, who was the grandson, he was the head of the Nehru Center. And after the show, we had only a small gathering at the center. And then after that, I was just there with him and his family for dinner. And he told me about Harilal Bhai. And he said, he called him Harilal Kaka. And he said that he was his favorite uncle. He thought that he was so special. It just gave me an idea about the story, about his life, not a story about what he was. It just stayed with me. I saw the play again, it stayed with me. And then I took it and did an English version called Mahatma versus Gandhi. And then it still stayed with me and stayed with me. And by that time, I was meeting a lot of members from the Gandhi family. And I had traveled to South Africa extensively before I did the film. I've been traveling to South Africa pre-apartheid, post-apartheid, not pre-apartheid, apartheid, and then post-apartheid. So I have been traveling a lot. And if you go to South Africa, you are basically surrounded by Gandhi all over. Okay, so I went to all. So he was there, happening to me. But then there was a film that was made with Richard Attenborough, which was a terrific, a film in terms of a Gandhi that we are comfortable with, a Gandhi that we know, a Gandhi which something you can only think, only Gandhi can become. And there was, he was almost God. He was almost Jesus Christ, if you would call it. Okay. Because I know there are only two people in the world with loincloth, Jesus Christ and Gandhi. And Gandhi in many ways also usually inspired by the life of Jesus Christ. So they made it like that. It was, as if Gandhi was great right from the beginning. If you look at all the kind of hagiographies that we have, that we want to. And then I also realized that Gandhi is practiced more in forgetting him than to remembering him. Because you can do this rituals every year, on his birthday, put him statue, put him on a platform, an old doddering person, and you're very comfortable because Gandhi that doesn't come personally to you is a Gandhi very comfortable, because once he comes personal to you, he becomes very uncomfortable because he's asking very uncomfortable questions and you get very affected by that. And to me, that part, that personal of Gandhi, that humanizing of Gandhi, without at any time taking away the greatness of the idea of Gandhi. Because I am a great believer in the idea of Gandhi. But the idea of Gandhi doesn't mean that you make him so irrelevant by the sheer practice of either eulogizing or attacking him, as we see happening recently a lot. Okay, because there is an ideological discomfort with Gandhi, because Gandhi still remains a big obstacle to realizing certain agendas. So Gandhi that way becomes very uncomfortable when you start getting very close to you. And I thought this was a great story. This was a great story about two people, one with expectation, a young man, aspiration, expectation, and one who's completely bound by his principles, uncompromising principles. And this line, the fine line of making sure that you tell the truth and at the same time you do not denigrate it and do not allow your work to be used to attack Gandhi, is to destroy Gandhi. That was the most difficult part for me. And at every stage of my work, I was hugely conscious of that. And that's there in the film. So that's one part. The second question that you asked is that, if I'm not mistaken, is the transition stage to cinema. Now, you have to understand that there are some similarities. Fundamentally, there are some similarities. You have to first understand that cinema is an evolution from theater. It's an evolutionary process. So it was initially theater, and theater, that's why you call it a play and you call it a screenplay, right? And initially, all cinema films that you saw, they were recorded like as if they were, recording a play. And even the acting style and everything, it was a technology that led you to the evolution from stage to cinema. So it was an evolutionary process. There are some fundamentals which are the same. They both come, if they have to write a screenplay or a play, it's fundamentally set of circumstances in space and time, and characters who react to those circumstances within the space and time. So this is all quite common to both of them. All right, you need to have that. And so once you have understood that, then once that's done, then you realize that as far as staging is concerned, now they are two completely different. Okay, you have a stage in which you have a fourth wall that is sort of broken out, is sort of smashed, and you watch through that one. In a proscenium theater, there are four walls. You cut one wall, and through that you're watching. You are almost like a one single shot. So you watch it, and distance of you from the stage is what decides your experience of the performance in theater. Whereas once the camera came in, and when the mobility of the camera came in, then everything changed. And one of the things that changed was time, because with cinema, you could play around a lot with time and spaces, because here it's within one space, you have to do a lot of things. Now, in that, you have to also realize that in theater, there is a lot expected of the audience in terms of imagination. Whereas in cinema, a lot of life is replicated as life is. The symbolism in cinema, yes, there, art house cinema or some those kind. I'm not going there. People are making those kind of films, but by and large, in theater, a stick can be a sword, a chair can be a throne. The power of symbolism, that it is a closed space, but it opens up the imagination. Or there's a lot of hard work that the audience has to do in theater. Whereas in cinema, you could pretty much sit back and let things happen to you with a full surround sound and all that. But in theater, audience has to work hard. They know that this is going to be. I need to work hard to get what's happening in the play. And the other thing is that theater depends a lot on words. So a lot of that happens in words because that's the only way I can communicate. I can tell you about the most beautiful things only through words, because I have only so much scenery I can do. So word is extremely important, and language is very important in theater. Whereas when you come to cinema, it's the visual, it's the image, it's the picture that tells you. So in both, your training would be in theater, you write a lot of dialogue. In cinema, you make sure that you write the least dialogue. Let the images, let all that speak. Once that is not enough, then you may use language. So in short, these are very clearly, the two sort of distinction, and particularly the acting. Now, acting is a very important part. That theater acting, because it needs to reach out to a audience right many meters away from you. It has to have a certain kind of loudness to it, as you would call it. But the same thing when it comes on cinema, it's a disaster because it's just so loud. And you go to a close-up, an actor from theater gets completely lost because he is always thinking of an audience to react to it. Just this camera in front of you, and you don't know. And then you're told to stand like this and move like this. And, some things are inside you and some things are here. And the whole complete, distorted reality that an actor has in front of him. And then he's told to perform intimately and to perform because in cinema, the shot size dictates a lot of the kind of acting that you're doing. So you need to know the nuances of the grammar of cinema for a theater actor to be able to be very effective in cinema. Otherwise, he's all very loud. Of course, the four fundamentals are the same to explore character and so on and so forth. But the grammar of performance to be able to do in what is called in shattered realities. Many times you're shooting climax first, you're shooting in all kind of, different places because you need to cover that place. All that requires a very different kind of skill. It does take time for a theater actor to get adjusted to the grammar of cinema. So the acting style and all that becomes very, very different. Yeah.
But
I mean, this is
But significantly, a number of our actors they parallelly perform with greatness. I mean, Nasaruddin or an Om Puri or Shabana and Farooq Sheikh, and I'm coming to Shabana and Farooq Sheikh because you created, I think, for me, Tumhari Amrita, I think, is one of the greatest contributions to Indian theatre. It's staying power, it's minimalism, and its appeal. How did you achieve this?
Well, yeah, I mean, first of all, as you say, all great actors, it's easier for a theater actor to adjust to cinema, but it's almost impossible for a cinema actor to perform in theater. It's very, very difficult. Once you've been brought up in performing for cinema, it's extremely difficult to, it's very rare it happens. It happened, but it's very difficult. But if you know, because fundamentally they're doing the same thing, they're exploring characters, they're, all the things are same like a script, but then the language is different and they start getting adjusted. The good actor knows what they do is they pick up the craft. The difference is the craft. So that craft, the art is the same, the craft is different. So they start picking that up. And then most of the good actors and great actors have been able to adjust themselves very well. Now, when it comes to Tumhari Amrita, I mean, I don't know what to say. It was just a play that was done for 4 shows. I had done that as a tribute to Mrs. Jennifer Kapoor, who had passed away. And we normally have a 3-day festival at the Prithvi Theatre. No, sorry, a 1-day not a festival. It's an annual concert that Zakir Hussain does at the Prithvi Theatre on her birthday on 28th October. So in this particular year, 92, I thought that I would like to pay my tribute to her because a lot of the reason that I've been in theatre is because of my meeting her in theatre. If I hadn't met her in theatre, I would be doing something else. So I owe a lot to her. And so she had passed away, if you know, earlier. And so we did a 3-day festival of music, dance, dance, theatre, and music. So Alarmal Wali, she was doing the Bharatnatyam. Then I said, let me do a play. And then I found a friend of mine from US, a Chandrakant Shah writer, who had long time ago given me a play to read called Love Letters. So I liked the form, but I said, this content is nothing to do with us. So it had gone away. But I realized, oh my God, it's excellent form that just 2 people go to read letters, and it would really challenge us to do something like this. But it's such a challenge that just 4 shows, and that would be the end of the story. So we were doing those 4 shows, and after that, there were 2 in Bombay. One was in Calcutta and one was somewhere else. And I said, this is it. 2 in Calcutta. I said, that's it. We were going to close down the show. And even when we did the show, we had a technical rehearsal of the show 3 days before the show, something like that. And there were 10 people and 8 people went to sleep. Yeah, they'd gone to sleep. They thought this is the worst thing that is going to happen. And we were all so nervous. And so, in fact, to make it easier, I come in the beginning and give a little bit of a spiel, saying, look, basically saying these guys are not going to get up from here. Okay, take it or leave it, but they are not doing anything. This is not your regular stuff that's going to happen. But to me, I again taken it up because it was such a challenge that without any support, can just the story and can the writing, the fundamental of theater, can the acting, can the writing, can that just be enough to take the audience on a journey? And where Tumhari Amrita is being performed, the audience itself is going through their own personal journeys in their own lives. So that true imagination of a writer colliding with the personal experience of the audience, can that happen? Can pauses be music? Because I use no music or anything of that sort. And I remember Mrinal Sen saw the play and he said exactly the same thing. He says, in your play, the pauses are music. And I thought that was something so special for me. I just treasure it because, he really hit it on the head. There was nothing. So the pauses, the intonation, the use of the voice, and how each texture and all that, of course, both of them were absolutely stunning, because both of them, again, came from a particular culture with which they could deliver this extraordinary piece written by Javed Siddiqui. So that's how it came about.
And how did you, zero down on Shabana and Farooq?
But that's a very personal thing. I knew them from far. I had never personally interacted. But, you all have your own fantasies about a very ideal couple. So I thought, and I used to see that if Shabana and Farooq Sheikh, if they got together and married each other, I thought they would be so good. Both of them so cultured and looking. So like a picture frame, everything very perfect about them, same culture, such fantastic actors. And I thought how lovely this couple would be. Well, after meeting them, I realized that would have been the biggest disaster if they had got married to each other. They're very different people, both of them. But that was honestly, I thought that if this is, and then it works very well because the audience wants them together, to be together. And then the story doesn't allow them to do that, And it was very, very heartbreaking because after Farooq Sahab died, I and Shabana, we can't even look at the script. But in Bombay, we had a 100 years celebration for Mr. Bhabha, who made the National Center for Performing Arts. Right. So they told us you do something. So what we did was we did a last piece of the play. And in the play, Amrita reads her last letter and she dies. She dies in the play, okay? Yeah. And then Farooq Saab writes a letter to the editor after she passes away. Now, in this show, what we did, she read her piece and then she went and sat on Farooq Saab's chair and read his piece. And that was hugely moving for all. We cried and cried. We just held each other and cried because we can't imagine, it's been a long time. I mean, now, of course, I am thinking of reviving it because time is a great healer. And I think it's a great piece of work that needs to go out to the audience. But for all these years, almost 6-7 years, we haven't had the guts to, we don't even talk much about the play because we've had such a wonderful time being together. Yeah.
And have you thought about who will replace Farooq Saab?
Well, not now. But even Shabana is not going to do. So there'll be a new team.
Oh, it'll be a new team. Okay.
It'll be a new team.
Yeah. Maybe that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. It has to be a new team. Yeah.
I mean, there was somewhere you said, I'm told that I don't believe in intellectual terrorism and theater should be stimulating.
I don't know how this was picked up somewhere. What I meant was, is that there are times where you completely have great disregard for the audience. You want to you how do I say it? I mean, self-indulgence, you would call it, or gibberish and unformed ideas and a lot of those things. And because you take no responsibility in the sense that you don't care whether the audience watches the play or doesn't watch the play. I mean, when people come and tell me, so I don't care whether the audience watches my play or not. And I don't wonder, I don't think, it's fine if the people don't watch my movies as long as I make it. If there's 5 people come and watch or 10 people watch a play. Now, all that bothers me a lot because there needs to be some relationship, there needs to be some reason, and there needs to be some yardstick through which you know that what work you have done is fine or not. And there have been a lot of that kind of work, completely disconnected, somebody just picking up somewhere from the West and comes up with those kind of, the theater ideas and sort of bombarding you with that and saying, you just have to, and if you're not, there are people who talk to them and they fear that if their work is understood, they are done something which is not right. They feel it's not measured up to the intellectual level that they have set themselves up, is that my work cannot be understood. The less my work is understood, the more deeper and the greater the work is. And I can't fathom that, because you look at Shakespeare, his plays were done for common people, and yet they are classics. They're great things. How is it that you do work where you don't want it to have anything to do with the audience? So you are terrified of the audience. So you created, a lot of them is so much rubbish that comes out, and then you call themselves, art. I have a problem with that. So I think in my over enthusiasm, this must be very, very long time ago where I may have said that, and I regret the language.
Yeah, yeah. Even Ritvik Ghatak, who was an iconoclast, wanted his audience. I mean, there was no way that he wouldn't. In fact, there was an anecdote. I'm told that in Bombay, when he was screening Nagorik, he was waiting at the gate to usher in people, and only Vijay Tendulkar showed up. So Vijay Tendulkar and Ritik Ghatak sat and watched the premiere of Nagarik because there was no one else to watch.
Yeah, no. I mean, look, great work. His work was great. There's no doubt about it. The problem is that it isn't. If your desire is not, his desire was to have an audience, right? Yeah. Maybe the audience would come in a little later. But a work of art is understood very clearly from the work which pretends to be art. So that pretension in your work, you like, for example, when people talk about, like, two directors will talk to each other, or two writers, they won't talk to each other that they have an art problem. They have a problem of arc. They have a problem of character. They have a problem of plot. They don't know whether you discuss that. You discuss the craft. You are involved in your craft daily, right? This whole business of discussing only art and having nothing to do with the craft, it means you had a great intellectual conversation about all the great cinema in the world. But when you go behind the camera, you don't know even how to shoot a scene. You don't know even how to shoot, take a shot. That's where the problem is to me. I think you should be humble enough to understand that the medium is bigger than me, okay? That the life is bigger than me. And I am merely trying to explore it through a certain talent that I have. And I'm going to do my best, come there every day and have these new problems and new challenges. And every time I tell a story which is different than what I've done before. And that's all that you can do. And that's what I believe that, yeah.
I mean, just moving to a different, taking a tangent from what we are talking about, and of course, something that you had invoked about the times that we are living in, is this medium, and when I'm saying medium, I'm talking about, acting, and I'm talking about film and theater, both. Will they be able to shake our conscience? Will they be able to change the way the nation is moving? I mean, because this is an industry which was always considered to be secular. Is this industry going to now be able to play its part?
You asked me a very, very important question, and I think mainstream cinema will go to what is called the mainstream power, but the non-mainstream cinema, and interestingly, regional cinema, is not being bogged down by that. They are standing up for that. Wherever the mainstream cinema has a direct relationship with central power. So when the central power is there, the mainstream, wherever they have the influence, that cinema can do two things. One is be a propaganda, and the other is actually not doing the bidding, okay? Because you can also say no, and you can say yes, right? You can even stay neutral. The stakes are very high. And the powers that are be have got just too much power to be able to browbeat anybody if they don't toe the line. So it becomes extremely difficult. So it's all very good for us to ask them to make those sacrifices, but there are many people involved in that. And so what happens is that the problem is when they become complicit in that. Now, the being complicit becomes a problem. You can still speak in a language which is more subversive, a language that does not become agitprop, but still makes the point. Like, I have done two films. The other film, I don't know many people have seen it, not many, but it's a film that I made called Dekh Tamasha Dekh, okay? And that is talking straight about the issue of identity and communalism. I took Romeo and Juliet as my reference and told a story about about hatred, that in times of hatred, it is love that will finally has to triumph. It's love that needs to be there within us to be able to counter that. You are saying it in a way, and even if you know that when Shakespeare's time, he did speak what he wanted to, but he had to find a slightly more different language in which to speak. It means that you're speaking, but you're not going out there like agitprop and speaking whatever it is. In any case, mainstream cinema was hardly speaking anything except, they are there to entertain, which is fine. That's their job. But regional cinema has been doing a lot of that, as I see it, and they have more power. And I think a lot of this will also happen in social media, of course, in the other mediums, the new medium. When it comes to theater, we do have people speaking. It's not that people aren't speaking; they are speaking. You cannot in today's world, ideas, and even all the time, you cannot imprison ideas. So if anybody thinks that they can imprison it, they can contain them for a while. But to believe that this is how it's going to be all the time, that everything is changed, not at all. India is not what a lot of people think it has come to. Yes, it is at the moment quite distressful is the way things are happening, but it doesn't mean that it will remain like this all the time, because even now, despite all that is there of the might of the state and everything, we still have got very powerful voices standing up.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, hum dekhenge. Iqbal Bano could also come out with her black sari and sing.
Oh yeah, I mean, look at so many parts of India where they are speaking, and because it doesn't have a history. It doesn't have a history of being only a monoculture. It has only one idea. India has always been multiple ideas, and you can't. It's a history. You can't change that overnight. A few years of what is called a rule that uses institutions and everything and so on and so forth. You cannot frighten people into obeying. You can do that for a short time. You can never do that. Ideas have to be inspiring. They cannot be threatening you. And today we are seeing ideas that threaten you. And those threatening ideas have got its expiry date. Yeah, but inspiring ideas remain for all times to come.
Yes, and I hope all my students are listening to this, because sometimes they sound a little. It's despairing. I mean, it's
yes, it is. It is very natural. It is all that is happening around you. But because we have seen it very good, we are a generation which never had to struggle for anything.
Yeah,
we had the best of the liberal time and the liberal democracy for a long time. We haven't been challenged. So I think, in a way, it's a good churning. I consider it as a churning, because all of a sudden we know the price, we know the value of freedom. We had taken it for granted. Now we know what it is to be free and what it means to have a freedom and a voice and a democracy. So we'll have to fight for it. It's not going to come easy.
Absolutely. And Prithvi reminds me of the Irish coffee. Just like Tumhari Amrita, that is something that has been there always at Prithvi. Yeah. But I want to touch on a different issue and aspect of your work, Feroz. You led the Himmat Hai To Jeet Hai campaign in your capacity as the creative advisor of the Population Foundation of India. And we are still in the pandemic. This is a third year running now, 2 years, incredible 2 years, and I think the resilience of people and the holding together, holding hands, despite and in spite of all the odds, have been truly inspiring in many ways. But how challenging has it been for theater artists, directors, performing artists to sustain their craft, given that theater can't be performed to an empty hall?
Well, we are pretty much scorched in many ways. I mean, on and off, you have theater opening up for 50%, and everybody. I can only give an example that I know very closely, is the Prithvi Theatre, and it's just the resilience and the whatever you call it, the fortitude of the performers, that despite these conditions, they continue to perform there. I mean, we run Prithvi 50% and it's house full. Let me tell you that. It's sold out. It's almost 90% is what the capacity. The cafe is completely sold out. Because Prithvi has this great culture where the space belongs to the performers and to the audience. It does not belong in many ways to the management. That's how it's been constructed. And the values are constructed like that. So it's there. However, they are engaged by doing these things, but by and large, it's been extremely difficult. Yes, the only help has been that there has been, a lot of them have been now working in other mediums. So they have found ways of acting in television serials, in web series, and many other things. So there is some employment that you have for the actors. But if you are quintessentially a theater actor or a theater director, so on and so forth, these are very, very difficult times. And it just doesn't seem to be, you are waiting. It's always waiting for Godot, when it's going to, when that's going to happen. These are tough times, but hope is our only hope. We can do anything about it. I mean, that's the way it is. And though I must tell you that once this opens up, live entertainment is going to get a surge, because human beings want to be with human beings. We are a social animal. So no matter how much virtual reality you're going to get fed up with that. You need to experience real people. People have tried to do theater on internet, like, on Zoom and so on and so forth. Unfortunately, it doesn't work because they are two different mediums. You're just doing a theater, like shooting a theater experience. So, it just doesn't work. So I am being quite, I've not been very excited about it. However, there have been some good things that a lot of people have gone to teaching. A lot of directors I know who have been doing online classes, and teaching has actually, training and teaching has had a huge audience, because a lot of people have got used to being online to learn. And I think that has also helped certain people. But by and large, it's very, very difficult and very, very tough.
Yeah. Teaching reminds me, that we are at the Jindal School of Journalism and Communication. We are launching an undergraduate course with an honors in film and new media. And, I'm looking forward to it because it's challenging, but it's also, I think, we felt a necessary course, because as an undergraduate, we do not have this kind of a course in many places, or rarely in India. But is there something that you have to say to prospective students who want to study film and new media? And by new media, of course, I'm adding animation and gaming and stuff like that. The way it looks like where the future is going to be of the film.
Well, I don't know anything. I'm not in the new media. I'm not even on Twitter. I'm not even on Facebook. So I would be a very wrong person. In fact, if anything, I could learn from them. The only thing I know is that this is a great time for anybody wanting to do anything they want. Because in our times, we were only subjected to art, science, and commerce. We didn't have any fourth option if we had to go. Or you had an art film school here and a theater school, National School of Drama. You didn't have much options, right? Now, today, the kind of options that you have, the option to even drop one and do other things. The only thing I could tell them, that explore everything that you have. Don't get yourself, I think that's what I feel, that today's generation need not be limited by the circumstances. They should be limited only in their imagination. That's all. And imagination can go anywhere. So if they are, and they should be able to explore everything and then take a call of what is best for them, what suits them well. If you just go that from beginning, I'm only going to do this and this is what I'll end up with, then this generation, I don't think so, will be able to hang on in anything for a long time. So it would be good that you explore as much as you can within your own aptitude and within your own talent that you feel. And again, this generation is very good thing about them is they aren't afraid of anything. They're more fearless. And I think with that kind of a spirit, if you have an undergrad course that at such an early stage in your life, if you're able to get the kind of education and training, then you get into the profession much faster. Yeah. And you also have a more focus rather than just hanging around in college for 3 or 4 years, doing nothing much. That right from undergrad, you're pretty focused on the jobs that you want to do and explore all that at a very young age. Yeah.
Yeah. Though I keep telling them that the fundamentals will remain the same and you will be a storyteller. So, you have to tell a compelling story.
that's it. And everybody wants, that's it. That keeps the human society in many ways intact, is because we have so many stories to tell. We need story. Every day we are consuming stories.
The students who've produced the show, they are also here with us, and I want to open the floor to them and request them to ask a couple of questions before we wrap up today's session. Who wants to go first? Rishabh, you raised your hand. Yes, Rishabh.
First of all, good evening to everyone and all. And I wanted to say it's an honor to meet you, Mr. Khan. And secondly, I wanted to say that as we all know, you directed the critically acclaimed film Gandhi, My Father, but you also managed Akshay Khanna, one of the biggest and underrated actors in Bollywood. Mr. Khanna also received positive response and acclaim for stunning performance for playing the son of Mahatma Gandhi, the father of our nation, but also a very complex man. My question to you is, how did you prepare him to play such an intricate role? Did you sort to any methodic techniques? And if so, how difficult was it to manage or separate him from the character?
Right from the beginning, I had a conversation with him, because initially I didn't want any known face or any star to actually play the role of Harilal Gandhi, because he's completely unknown. So I thought an unknown person would be better to play that. This is also a great learning for me, is that many a times an actor can be very compelling on stage, but he could be completely insipid on screen, because the camera is something that immediately accepts or rejects a personality in many ways. It's one of the learnings that I had. However, having said that, my conversation with Akshay was very simple, that we had to strip away all that is recognizable of a star Akshay Khanna, which I would call the De-Actualization process. It means that all that is very peculiar to you, there is mannerisms and the way you approach your part, we just take that away. So with simple terms, when you take away all your blockages, you will allow the character to enter, because otherwise these mannerisms, these gestures, the way you speak, they all become your crutches, and they do not allow any other character to enter. Every character is played the way you are. Okay, so for you to play something else, you need to first completely distance yourself from yourself. So distancing himself from who he was in terms of his manners and so on and so forth, and allowing the character to come in, that's all. The rest of it is him, because all the complexity of the character, all that the character goes through, resides in Akshay Khanna, and resides in many of the sensitive actors that you have. And he had all that with him. From the first shot that I took, he was Harilal, and that's it. And he's an outstanding actor. So there isn't much of, because you can't, he's such an experienced guy, I can't keep telling him, you perform this way. But I cleared some things for him, and thereafter he just went on with it. Yeah.
Any other questions, guys?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Reed. Is Reed asking the question? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So first of all, pleasure meeting you. My question is that OTT in recent times has emerged as another platform in addition to mainstream cinema and theatre. Do you think it has the potential to sort of take over mainstream cinema? And if yes, where do you see yourself be a part of it?
I don't think so. I think everything will coexist. At the moment, due to pandemic and people aren't going to the theater, yes, what will happen is there are some stories that will be told to each medium. Each medium will dictate its own kind of stories. So OTT will have more cutting edge stories. It will be far more what is called challenging in terms of stories and storytelling. Cinema may become much more bigger and bigger. It may be more and more fantasies, more and more alternate reality, more and more, those kind of films, perhaps. Okay. Television will have its own story. So all the medium will find their own balance, because this keeps happening. When cinema happened, people thought theater will die. When television came, you thought cinema will die. Okay, when video came in, everything, it won't happen that way. People will go and approach each stories in each medium, and they will go accordingly. And that's how the thing will evolve. That's according to me. As long as I'm concerned, I'm primarily, I love theater. So I see myself doing more and more theater. But yes, I am also perhaps planning to make a few films. But my quintessentially, I'm going to be in theater. I think there's a lot I want to do in theater. I'm very comfortable with that medium.
Okay, thanks. Anyone else? Amaya, Samyukta, Sadia, Rishti, where are you guys? Sadia, I can see your video. You want to ask a question?
It was good meeting you, Mr. Khan. I don't really have a question. It was great, like listening to you, especially talk about the communalism and how, you know, like the older generation has, what you guys have seen growing up and now what the current situation is. It was, yeah, it was great talking to you today.
No, do you have any question on that?
Not really. I don't have a question, but yeah, I don't really have a lot of questions. It was just like great listening to you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Samyukta?
Hi, sir. Good evening. So I have a question. Like you've been making films like Mughal-e-Azam or like Gandhi, My Father. So these are like prominent characters in the history. So how do you cope up with that kind of pressure and, you know, to make something new and, you know, then coping with the expectations as well?
I think I have answered that question in detail, Sanjukta. I have answered that in question. Although that you have asked me again, I can only say is that I come from a great place of respect for these characters and these people. So I am not there to demolish them. I don't come with an agenda. I come with a great sense of respect. And through that, I want to tell the truth. The only thing I can tell you that if you are telling the truth, you don't worry about anything else. If you have an agenda, if you want to peddle something else through using these people to say something completely, destructive, then that's a problem. But I came from a great position of wanting to. Mughal-e-Azam is not a film that I did the play. So I wanted to create the same magic of cinema on stage. That was it. With Gandhi, I wanted to tell the truth about the extremely complex character, not just of his son, but also Gandhi as such, and to humanize him and to speak the truth as long as Gandhi is concerned, because Gandhi epitomizes truth and he guides me to tell the story about him and his family.
All right. I think we've come to the end of our session today, Firoz. Absolute pleasure. Like my students said, we start the series by talking to you. Really appreciate your time. And I hope we can be associated as a school with you, with your work, and you come and visit us. We shall invite you soon. Hopefully, when
thank you very much.
Up.
And if I do come there, I will invite your students to come for my show.
Absolutely, yeah.
It would be a pleasure. Yeah,
yes,
I'll help them. Yeah.
In fact, just a week before we went into lockdown, we had Royston Abel's the Mangania Seduction on our campus, and it was a grand.
Oh
show.
my God! Oh my God! What a show! What a show! Yeah,
what a show it was. And then I think a couple of months before that, Nasruddin came with Einstein. So, so we have
in your campus, yeah.
Campus,
so you do have,
we invite people, and we shall invite you. But
no, I'll wherever I'm performing in Delhi, I will invite your students for sure, and your faculty. I would like to have them at the show for sure. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me, and it's really been a pleasure and an honor to be in the show.
Yes, and once again, this is a JSJC. JSJC actually is the acronym for Jindal School of Journalism and Communication. It is their first student production. Hope, guys, you'll be able to sustain it just the way Firoz sustained Tumhari Amritam, and that's almost impossible to achieve. But remember, staying power is important. So you need to sustain it, sustain the shows, meet more people. Thanks to each one of you for putting it together. Thanks to my faculty, Ruchira Sen, Kajori Sen, and to the filmmaker and cinematographer Parashar Barua in Bombay, who actually thought about this format with students and with one practitioner, one artist each week. And thanks to the audience on the YouTube, I'm told there are a lot of people watching us live. And I hope we will all go back and listen to Lata all evening. Lagja Gale is my favorite. Firoz, which is your favorite?
Well, I would say, Ajeeb Dastan hai ye. Ajeeb Dastan.
What a song. What a song.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Thank you so much, Firoz.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.
Good day.